August 2016, Red Sea. Among the endless ships that transit this route every day, a lone cargo ship rests, forgotten and nearly unnoticeable as it creeps through international seas. However, this ship isn't your typical cargo ship. It's the Jie Shun, a 97-meter relic flying a Cambodian flag but carrying the fingerprints of North Korea. On the surface, it appears harmless. 2,200 tons of iron ore stacked neatly in it all. But beneath that weight, something else is buried, something that should never have been seen by the world.
A UN report is set to shed light on North Korea's deep ties with Egypt, where the regime's embassy is believed to be a clearinghouse for illicit arms sales.
A secret so dangerous, its discovery would shake the global stage.
We are totally prepared for the second option. But if we take that option, it will be devastating. I can tell you that. Devastating for North Korea.
The year was 1956. Egypt nationalized the Suez Canal in defiance of the West. In response, Britain, France, and Israel, regional powers determined to protect their influence, launched a swift and brutal retaliation. North Korea, a small, far-off country, pushed up as Cairo prepared for war. It was only a small monetary payment, nothing more. However, it was sufficient to sow the seeds of friendship that would endure despite leaders, wars, and sanctions. A connection based on ideas rather than geography. The bond strengthened during the 1960s. Cultural contacts grew, embassies were established, and delegations were traded. Pyongyang was the one that supplied food help to Egypt's citizens after it was humiliated. By 1965, ambassadors were seated in both capitals. The handshake was no longer symbolic, it was official. Two nations on different continents, marching in step. Then came October 1973, the Yom Kippur War. Egypt launched a daring strike against Israel, but behind the scenes, their war effort was quietly reinforced by North Korea. There were North Korean advisors in Egypt. Additionally, rumors state that its pilots even boarded MiG-21 aircraft to conduct combat missions over Egypt. Some did not return home. Blood spent in battle is the kind of sacrifice that forges alliances stronger than treaties. On the banks of the Suez Canal, a monument depicting a tall AK-47 with its muzzle and bayonet piercing the sky was built years later, often described as a North Korean gift, a tribute to the guys who died in 1973. The fact that Egypt and North Korea have a lasting friendship is conveyed by every line of that monument and every bolt of metal. By the 1980s, the war drums had faded. The world was getting closer. The sanctions became stronger. The allies sailed off. However, Pyongyang had a valuable lesson. Deal quietly if you can't trade openly. With their flags borrowed from far-off countries and their paperwork falsified, rising cargo ships started to crisscross the waters. Iron ore, coal, and sugar were on their manifests, but beneath weapons, missiles, ammunition, and even drugs, enough to light up battlegrounds outside of North Korea. And always there was Egypt, an old comrade, a brother from the battlefield, torn between allegiance and the promise of American assistance. It was in this uneasy twilight that one ship set sail, a forgotten cargo ship painted in rust, flying a flag that wasn't its own. Its name, the Jie Shun. Long before it became a vessel of intrigue, the ship was just another workhorse of global trade, launched in 1986 at Japan's Koichi Juku shipyard. The fighter was named the Northern Queen. Its early years were spent transporting common cargo such as coal, ore, and steel across crowded sea lanes while flying the Panamanian flag. For ease, it was registered under Panama's open flag, just like a lot of trade ships of the time. Panama became the most popular registry in the world because of its lower taxes, cheaper fees, and less oversight. There was nothing remarkable about the ship when it was born. It was just 97 meters of steel, constructed for commercial purposes. However, as the years passed, its name would alter, its identity would change, and its mission would become more sinister. The ship was destined for a second life. By the early 2000s, the Northern Queen had shed its name and flag, reborn as Harmon under Cambodia's registry. It entered a new world, one where flags of convenience offered cover not just for cost, but for secrets. From there, the disguises multiplied. From Harmon, it was later then named Velox, and finally to Jie Shun. Each name, each flag was another mark. The freighter, or cargo ship as many call it, was learning to disappear. By the time it became the Jie Shun, the ship's paper trail was a web of shadows. On record, it belonged to Vast Wind Trading Limited, a Hong Kong-based firm. Its management was assigned to Q Brothers Marine Co. Limited, registered in the Marshall Islands. But these were little more than empty shells, fronts with no substance. In reality, the cargo ship answered to Pyongyang's networks. It was no longer a simple cargo ship. It was a ghost built to vanish into the endless tide of maritime traffic, ferrying whatever its masters demanded. On July 23, 2016, the Jie Shun slipped quietly out of Aiju, North Korea, carrying 23 crew members. Among them was even a political commissioner. A reminder that this was no ordinary journey. Its automatic identification system, AIS, flickered on and off like a dying heartbeat, alive only when necessary, dark when secrecy mattered. The ship's course cut past the Malay Peninsula, across the Arabian Sea, through the Gulf of Aden, and finally into the Red Sea. Its heading was clear, north toward the Suez Canal. Intelligence agencies were already watching. Acting on a US tip, Egyptian authorities intercepted the Jie Shun near Al Adapia port, just south of the Suez Canal. When inspectors dug through the ore, they unearthed the arsenal. The manifest declared 2,200 tons of iron ore, but beneath the ore, packed into 79 wooden crates, lay something else. More than 30,000 rocket-propelled grenade components, valued at nearly $23 million. According to the UN panel of experts, it was the largest seizure of ammunition in the history of sanctions against North Korea. Its many identities, Panama's colors, Cambodia's registry, and Hong Kong and Marshall Islands shell firms were not just paperwork. They were marks in a dangerous game. And when those marks fell, Cairo found itself standing at the intersection of denial, suspicion, and power. The discovery only deepened the mystery. Who were the weapons for? The UN reports revealed that the crates bore the name of an Egyptian company, Al-Sakar, a marking someone had tried to cover with canvas. The New York Times echoed the alarm. Washington had long tolerated Egypt's quiet dealings with Pyongyang, but this shipment was too large and too public to ignore. Cairo rejected the accusation. Officials stressed the shipment was seized, exposed, and destroyed under UN supervision. If the state had really ordered the cargo, why would Egyptian customs even inspect it in the first place? Why risk US aid worth billions for outdated North Korean grenades when Egypt was already striking multi-billion euro arms deals with France and Russia? Egypt today called Washington's case fragile, built on anonymous sources and circumstantial evidence, and yet suspicion lingered. By 2017, the diplomatic squeeze tightened. The Trump administration delayed nearly $200 million in aid, citing both human rights concerns and Egypt's alleged ties with Pyongyang. Behind closed doors, American officials warned Cairo that the era of double games was over, but in public, the alliance looked unshaken. Weeks later, President Trump welcomed President Sisi warmly at the UN General Assembly. Soon after, US and Egyptian troops launched Bright Star 2017 together, showcasing unity on the battlefield. The cameras showed strength. The whispers told another story. The Jie Shun left Egypt in a dilemma it could not easily escape. Denials on one side, evidence on the other. Cairo was caught between the trust of its most powerful ally and the shadow of an old secretive partnership. Were the 30,000 grenades truly meant for Egypt's army, or was Cairo merely collateral in someone else's smuggling web? What was certain was this: the Jie Shun was not just a ship, it was a test, a crack in the facade, revealing just how fragile the balance of global power had become, and Egypt was standing right in the middle of it. Although the Jie Shun's journey ended in confiscation, its narrative highlighted a more significant issue: the fragile state of international confidence. The vessel carried not just weapons, but also proof of the extent to which North Korea's shadow trade had already expanded, hidden beneath iron ore and false flags. The Jie Shun had vanished under UN supervision, yet its shadow lingered. Cairo streets carried on, now waters flowed, but behind closed doors, the echoes of one intercepted shipment were still being felt across continents. North Korea's smuggling network had been exposed like never before. Investigators now tracked shipments more closely, and the world saw that even allies could be caught in the crossfire of secret arms trades. Washington recalibrated its approach to Egypt, billions in aid, but trust had been tested. Every decision, every shipment, every handshake was now under a microscope. Defense ministers visited allies, reaffirming diplomatic ties, and Egypt distanced itself from Pyongyang. The message was clear: the old battlefield brotherhood was now a relic, a story from decades past. For Pyongyang, the failed shipment was a lesson in concealment, arms disguised as ordinary cargo, new routes, more intricate networks. The game of invasion would continue, but the world had a sharper eye now, and every subsequent move carried higher risks. The Jie Shun wasn't just a ship, it was a mirror reflecting the fragile balance of global power. Trust and suspicion, secrecy and transparency, past loyalties and modern alliance. Nations move like chess pieces, calculating risks and reward. But sometimes, even a single fighter can expose the hidden fractures in that game. And in the middle of it all, Egypt had been forced to navigate the delicate line between history, ambition, and scrutiny. The question that would linger long after the wave settled: who really controls the shadows?